Hello, you beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Integration Station. I'm Naturally Ashley, your host, here with Nate from Jolly Mycology, and we're going to talk today about mycology, mushroom cultivation, all the things that led him down this journey, and what it's all about, what he's doing now. So, without further ado, I'll just pass over to you, Nate, and you can please share with us your journey to mycology and Jolly Mycology.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I mean, I guess, the journey was a long one. I was always been interested in psychedelics, even back before they were maybe as socially approved of as they are now. And I always felt that they really had capability to help with therapy, and that I didn't have it distilled down to mushrooms can help with therapy when I was younger, but I definitely felt you could use tripping and mushrooms and LSD as like a tool to like confront trauma or get through difficult things in life. And I hadn't really connected that was therapy at that point in my life, but I did figure out that you could kind of find solace and different perspectives with psychedelics. And it's so impactful when you actually have a different perception that comes to you in your own brain. That's something that somebody else can't give to you, regardless of the amount of conversation you have with them. You have to have that epiphany and those brain connections occur in your brain. And so, whatever, if you need another chemical to do that and or therapy to do that, but getting those connections made is really just kind of pivotal to being able to move forward and become a whole person and hopefully, overcome any trauma that we all deal with.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm curious, having these kind of epiphanies in your life, how did that unfold and finally become your own business? One of the things you're known for is like that you've won the psychedelic cup. You're getting, you also help new cultivators learn how to grow mushrooms. So yeah, break it down for us. What's it? Yeah.
Well, it's I guess when I started getting back into psychedelics, I hadn't tripped in about probably a decade, and I, of course, had my exciting youth, like most people have, and I ate a bunch of mushrooms and ate a bunch of LSD, but I didn't know that there were different strains. I didn't even know, to be honest, until fairly recently, that there were even different strains of LSD, and that's all brand new to me. And so once I came back to it, I didn't have any connections in the industry really. So I just had my old knowledge of the PF tech, showing my age here a little maybe by saying that. But yeah, I did the psilocybin fanaticus tech when I was younger. And so I had assumed when I was coming to this situation and trying to grow again, that I would be looking for spores and that I would then be making my cakes out of, some organic brown rice, vermiculite, etc. So I started looking around for people locally, and I asked for, just asking for mushrooms, and I saw somebody who had a bag that they weren't all smashed up yet. And so I was like, oh, you grew these, because I know they get smashed up so quickly. And so anyway, he was able to help me with some of the genetics locally. And then we started working together. And once I was able to add my extra knowledge with agar to the situation, things just really blossomed. And so it was a real synergistic meeting when my friend and I got together. And Toad, in for his complete, he deserves all of his credit because he's done so much work in this. He's actually the one whose name was on the application when he sent in that sample. So technically, Toad has won those two medals. He works where it's the exact same genetics, same plates and everything, but Toad is with Jolly, but he's the one who won them, and so I just always want to give him his credit because he's worked really hard and he's earned it.
Okay, that's awesome. And you guys did it was altitude testing that you guys sent in for, and that was involved in that cup and everything too, right? There was
Yeah.
and you guys all hopped on. There was like a panel just recently that Steve put together. 7-1 DPO, give a shout out to all those guys at FCP and Psychonauts TV, because it
Thank you
was
guys
a
for
really
having
great
me.
panel. Yeah.
Yeah,
Pardon?
yeah. I'm grateful for being on it. I thought that was so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you share a little bit more with us about like biology and contamination? Because I know that those are things that are really important to you where you're at right now, and you have a
Sure.
pretty good contamination rate as well, right?
Yeah, my contam rate's really low. Luckily, I've just actually added. This is now a HEPA fan that I've got in recently, but we won the cup prior to me having a HEPA fan, and so it can be done out there. The the thing is that you've got to really take into account laboratory techniques. Is the shorthand version of what it is. And uh, you've just got to really be clean and try to think about all of the potential avenues for contamination to come in. Anytime that you're taking the lid off of the container is a potential danger. There's, it's an area where contaminations can get in there. And so you just want to make sure that, for instance, you're not wearing like a shirt that's got a bunch of stuff on it, or you've got a bunch of cat fur or hair or something on you. You know what I mean? You want to have even like a laboratory coat if at all possible, and wear the lab coat. Use your gloves. Never move over the bucket, or the tubs or the beakers or whatever you're dealing with, because obviously if you move over it and something falls, it's going to fall in there. And so you just really have to take into account things like that. And there's more dorky things. Whoops, sorry about that.
Yeah, please give all the examples you've got.
Yeah, and so there's like dorkier examples where it's like, so if we pretend this wasn't a squirt bottle and this was actually just a reagent bottle, what we would do is we still need to treat it with sterile technique. So I want to keep this the lip with the ridges on it inside here beneath the cap. I want to keep that perfectly clean. So I would be wearing a mask, especially since I'm talking with somebody. If you're ever talking in your room, wear a mask because we spit stuff out constantly. So no matter what, if you're going to be opening your bins and talking, wear a mask. But so I would be wearing a mask if I was following the rules, and also gloves. Um, and so what you do is you just unscrew it, and then once it gets to the unscrewed point, you then grab it by your fingers here, and then you lift it up. You normally wouldn't have to deal with this tail. And you can, go and then you pour your reagent, you readjust it so that it's careful, and then you can pour it into your beaker, and then this goes right back on, boom, like that. And so it's never been put down. There's no potential for cross contamination, and you use that everywhere. not just when you're dealing with bottles, but when you're dealing with bags, when you're dealing with bins, always clean the areas that you're going to touch extra, like the the locks on the bin lids. I'm forever wiping those down with isopropyl. And then around the entire rim, all sides, you want to, go all the way around it and under and in it, and go all the way around with your ISO and just clean it all up, because you're going to also then be moving the tubs later. You often touch the top of the rim of the tub, even with your clean gloves, to move them a little bit from here to there. And you've got to try to keep that in mind. Another way that it's helpful is, instead of, once you have your bins, when they're open, say you're making some bins, what you want to do is you can actually move them by pushing on the inside of the bin instead of grabbing the edge of the bin and pulling or pushing it somewhere. You push on the inside of the bin in whatever direction you want it to go, and then that way you can avoid contaminating by grabbing the lip and potentially, adding some sort of cross there. But it goes with everything, like the way you treat the scalpel. You always want to set it down so that the scalpel is essentially hanging out in just mid-space, mid-air. And then, you usually cover it with some alcohol and then flame clean it and then set it aside and let it sit for a while. Other little tricks that you'll learn as you play with agar is, the heat, of course, on your newly sterilized scalpel. If you just took it right off of the flame, right out of the Bunsen burner or flame candle, whatever you have, and then you jabbed it right in, it would definitely kill the mycelium that's right at the edge. It might still be alive if you cut a wide enough slice, but the edges would certainly be dead because you would have burned them. So one of the things that you also want to do is you keep a spare plate of just blank sterile agar around, and you'll use that to dip your scalpel in before you make your next cuts. So you'll dip it in and you'll hear it even cool down or go tss, and you just make sure to hit all the different sides of your scalpel and then recover your dipping one, which really you never grow anything on it at all. It's just for dipping the scalpel. And then you can go ahead and now open up your free one. And this is where the techniques really come in. So when you're dealing with this and this one's already been contaminated, but when you're dealing with it and you don't want it to contaminate, this is a really big point where you want to do that lid trick. So you want to be able to grab it just by the top edges and then lift it and then do that, and then be able to put this onto your workstation, and then you'll have this hand free. Do whatever you need to do, and or if you need, you can place this down, but make sure to place it down with the lips up. And I normally will only place petri dish lids on top of other stacks of petri dishes. And normally this is all done within your workspace, so right in front of your fan, because then as the fan's blowing over it, that's going to keep all of the clean air going into it and pushing any potential contaminants away. If you're using a still air box, instead of trying to have that hopefully laminar flow, but at least it's a high pressure flow. But if you're not doing that and you have a still air box, you're going to the opposite side of the scale. And now you're trying to just have no airflow at all. So if I'm using a still air box, what I do is I run my fans, like my HEPA fans for the environment. I just have a couple HEPA fans for a household HEPA fan. They're about $100, and you replace the filter every 3 months. I have those going constantly just in the background, and I'll shut those off and any fans that I have going off for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes before I start doing any still air box work. And then I'll go into the still air box room and, get what I need done. And then normally I'd even reclose, like I'd have some pieces that you could a plastic that you could then put over the armholes and tape it closed, so that your still air box is now more of a, its own private little atmosphere, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And that is
Um,
what you do a lot of still, is the air box.
Well, I'm just moving away from that. Like literally, I'm just building my practices of using the filter now. Um, but that's also how I learned in college, so I know how to use the filter quite well. It's not like it's
Yeah.
tricky. I just have to arrange it so that all of my crap isn't here, and because there's just a bunch of other science crap behind here that I'm just gonna have to move and find a new home for. And once I find a new home for all that,
Just have some shelves go feng shui. Call,
yes,
call in
Lord
the feng
knows,
shui angels.
I need
You
them.
and Dad, come on.
Yes. Please, oh please. So yeah, once I get that hooked up though, that'll be great. And the thing that this is really gonna be a big win for me. I haven't had that much problem with plates. I'm like almost batting 1,000 with plates, even just with this have still air and the still air box technique. Like it's really pretty good just with that. Um, but the thing that you will find your failures, and where my failures do come, that I right now it's like about an 8% fail rate is what I've been running at late recently. Um, but when you do grain to grain transfers, that's when the contams will happen, because you can't really do a grain to grain in a still air box, or at least with the 5 pound bags. I haven't been able to do it. And so that just means that I generally just do them out in the open. So I'll just go ahead and clean up the air in the room. Right now, I would just run the big filter for like 20 minutes and then just come in now, and it'd probably do a better job. But what I was doing before, so before you get a machine like that, I would just run the filters and then shut them off, give it the 10 minutes, go in there, bring the hot agar, and then pour the dishes. And everybody should get a heating stir plate too. These things are so handy. Um, it's. Are you familiar with a heating stir plate?
No, no,
Um,
you please.
so
Yeah,
so
share it all.
what it is it's a hot plate that also has a
The
magnet.
magnetic stir, the magnetic spoon, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So you can drop these.
I know they're really good to have, but I don't always understand all the science stuff.
It's
Yeah.
so helpful when you're pouring your agar plates, because I generally pour 2 sets of plates at a time. So I'll make up a liter of solution. But that'll be 2 different bottles. And you can keep one in the pressure cooker, and the hot water will usually keep it still warm that whole time. But if life jumps in and then you all of a sudden, it took an extra 20 minutes or whatever, and it starts gelling inside of your Erlenmeyer flask, usually the classic flasks. Um, of course, they're all too far to get. Um, yeah. Anyway, once it starts gelling up inside the flasks, though, it can be a real chore, and oftentimes mean that you also have to get a new flask. With heating stir plate, though, you can actually get that little stir bar to break off those little bits, and you can slowly melt them back in, and then you can repasteurize or resterilize the agar, and then you can pour plates with it again afterwards. So even if you've had that air, you can recover it and save that material.
Oh wow, that's yeah. There's a lot of benefit there. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, it definitely is a lot of benefit. It's a good one to know.
Yeah, you have about 15 tubs on the go right now. Is that right?
Yeah, there's something like that.
Yeah. Oh, I thought that's what you.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's about 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, and then I've got to make 15 exactly. Yeah, I've got to make 4 more. So yeah, Right now I've got 11, and then we're gonna have 15 once I turn those 4. Oh, let me
Yeah,
grab one of
can you give
I'll
us a
show
sneak
it.
peek of what you guys got going on?
Sure can. So let's see here. We've got one. This one looks like it's just about time, so we can also show people a shake here too. So this is some agar to grain. So this I took an agar plate and I added it to, well, I took half or a quarter of an agar plate and I added it to the sterilized wheat grain bag that I made. And as you can see, it started growing for sure and it grew really well, but there's a lot of it that's still just regular wheat grain in there. And so what we're going to need to do is we want to get that to spread so that it all is inoculated, or I'm sorry, so that it's all colonized. So we just break it up and we mix it. I'm sorry for the noise. And then bam. So now this is essentially all done. And in a day or two, this will now be solid again, and it'll all be white. But it's ready to go right now at the point where I would already start moving on to my next task rather than waiting for this to get any further along. So if you're at this point in your grow session, now get your tub ready, clean the tub, line the tub, put the duct tape on the vents, and then as soon as you've got your cocoa coir moistened to the proper amount, add the right amount of cocoa coir, this whole bag, and then that's it. So that's what we have for our all-in-one kits, is that you get one of these things that's just all ready to go, and you get the coir that's already been mixed with water so that or no, I'm sorry, you get the coir, but you have to mix it with water. So um, we tell you how much to boil, and you just boil out 2 different pots of 6 liters. If you're gonna make, it depends on how many tubs you're making, but we'll break it down for you. But if you're gonna make 4 tubs, what you do is, or I'm sorry, yeah, 4 tubs. You add 12 liters of boiling water. So I'll let it boil for probably like 4 to 8 minutes or so, just a really nice rolling boil, and then I'll pour it directly into a tub that just has the Canacoir tile in it. Has any, you guys are familiar with Canacoir? Should I grab one of those? Oh, I think you hit mute.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are more familiar with that. I know myself for sure, but you're welcome to, share whatever it is that you feel
Okay.
is most relevant, including
Well,
like
yeah. If
why it is that
everybody knows
that's
what,
why you're using it.
yeah, if everybody knows what Cana is, that's cool. So
Yeah.
the way that it comes is you get 2 tiles in a canna in the 40-liter compressed brick form. It comes in 2 tiles. Each tile in that package has 2 squares. So there's 4 squares, 2 tiles in a pack of Canacoir. Um, 1 tile will make 4 tubs. And so you, each one of those you mix with 5 pounds of colonized grain, and so that's literally the entire mix. It's just the genetics that we have, the grain, the coir. That's it. So it's just you add this to the coir, so you'll get the plastic bin, and then you have this that looks like it did before I squished it up. And then you go ahead and you add the chunk of coir that's like a hard piece of brown coir, and you add that to the tub, and then you go ahead and you add, it'll be 3.5 liters of water, And you'll do that by getting it boiling super hot and then adding the 3.5 liters of water all at once. And then once that's done, you leave it overnight. You let it cool down at its normal rate with, of course, the lid on it. And then I usually wear dishwashing gloves. And then I'll clean up. I'll be all nice and ISO'd. And always wear a mask whenever you're making bins. Try not to lean over the bin while you're working on it. I try to work on my side so I can use my arm, and then that way I don't actually have it in front of me. I have it on the side of me. Um, and then that also lets me, I can have one hand that's my mixing hand, and then I have one hand that is for moving lids and things like that. So that way I can make sure that there's no cross contamination. Um, but what you'll end up doing is you add the water to the coir, and then you mix that up, let it sit, cool down overnight, and then you'll just dump this in wholly, and then you just mix them together, and then make it a nice flat, like you were making a cake. You make it nice and flat, no high spots. And when you're done making it all nice and flat, and you follow these volume amounts, what happens is it brings you right to the right spot on your tub for things. So you'll end up, see how the dirt ends up stopping at about there. And then we have our holes right here. And those are the holes that help for the CO2 exchange. And on the side, we have them up higher to help with the other gases. But CO2 is heavier. So that's why you need to have those holes at the bottom. Because if they're a couple inches too high, then they're all going to be sitting in a puddle of carbon dioxide.
So, what are like the resources? What all like do you send, and what are some key tips for success in this method that you've created here?
I mean, it's really plug and play. It's you add ingredient 1 plus ingredient 2, and then you're gonna wait 3 days, and then after 3 days, you go and you're gonna take it from this stage right here, where it's got the plastic lined up and just taped up all around it, and then we just cut it right here, and we take that plastic out, and you'll notice that this is duct tape right now. And then once we switch it and we cut it, we change it to micropore tape. And so that changes the environment within the tub as far as CO2 and humidity. And that's what enables it to change to fruiting versus colonizing. And so with a kit, you'll end up you'll be colonizing immediately once you mix the things. That colonizing will finish in about 3 days, and then you'll cut the plastic bag and remove that and switch the duct tape to the micropore. That's the whole 9 yards. And then literally just wait and leave it alone. And about a week later, maybe a little less, you'll start to get pins, and then you'll get one that looks, really substantial, like this. Um, Here, I can give you a view. So that's what they end up looking like. And that's a nice, successful tub. But, you've got to just have the right genetics and, work with nature as much as possible. But nature's there to work with you too. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, and how are you getting your genetics now, or is that something that you're creating yourself as part of it?
A little bit of both. So genetics are always changing. So if you even get penis envy from somebody, and then, he gets the same penis envy from you 3 years later, there's a good chance that it's a little different from his penis envy 3 years later, since evolution happens. There's just difference in generations. Um, yeah, I forgot what was that question again?
Just how is it that you're getting your genetics? And you mentioned that you're getting a little bit of both. Like some of it you're kind of creating yourself, but some of it you are, gathering from other sources and still
Yeah, so
working collaborative.
most of my genetics have been people giving them to me and asking me to what I call shine them up. And so that's taking it from being like okay genetics to trying to make it into a monoculture or as close to a monoculture as you can of valuable genetics. The way that you do that is by having multiple generations of these petri dishes. And then you go through and you pick the most advantageous part of the petri dish, and then you excise that and put that into the center of a new petri dish, and then it starts growing again, and then that way you can continue whittling it down and try to just get it more and more refined into the best product. And knowing which part of the mycelium to cut that's the best part is, I'd say, like the where art meets science a little bit. And so the genetics, I'd say that most of them I've gotten from other people, but then I change them because of the way that I work with them and treat them. And you can also save, like if you, for instance, have like a contaminated bag or you have a contaminated plate, you can a lot of the time still save that strain if you're really invested in it. Um, so don't think that, if it's this one special strain, oh no, now this only plate I have got it sick. You can fight and get that back.
What would that look like?
You just
Or
have
what would that look like? Can you
no.
give an example of how you've done it?
Yeah. So like if so I had an Enigma before that I really didn't want to lose, and the Enigma plate unfortunately had gotten a contam on it, and usually so that means that you'll have not just the mycelium growing. Usually this plate was not this full, so the mycelium was probably only the size of a silver dollar in here. And then over here on the side of it, there was a big blue dot. I'm not sure, it's probably trike or something. I have not really done a lot with evaluating what the contaminants are. I just know I don't want them. Um, but so you can see visually that just they look different because they're dramatically different colors. And so what you do is you try to so say if there was the contam was up here near the top, what I would try to do is I would just pick from the farthest side away from the contamination, and then I would excise the strongest side, repropagate that, and then do it 2 or 3 more times, and then meaning like get 2 or 3 more samples to make 3 or 4 samples of attempts to save the contaminated one. A lot of those samples are going to also be contaminated, and sometimes even all of them. And so that's why I'm saying it's kind of like a war of attrition. Like if you keep fighting and you keep cutting out just a healthy part and adding it, and you're using your laboratory techniques and everything, you will eventually get it back alone. It's just it takes some time and can take a few plates. But that's really it. It's just stick to itiveness.
Yeah, persistence. And that's great. Um, so can you share a bit about which strains you're working with now and why?
Sure. Right now I'm dealing mostly with the Jolly Penis Envy, which is the one that we won the cup with the highest percentage of psilocybin. And oh yes, I'm glad you got some micros there. And those ones, that's the one that won the cubensis category for the highest in psilocybin, and that's the one that I'd say that I focus on, and I grow the most of those. Also, I grow a little bit. I don't have any fruiting right now of Enigma, and those are the ones that I tend to have the most fun crossing. I don't know. It's probably just because Enigma used to be so special when before everything changed. um, most people hadn't even heard of it, and if you actually had Enigma, it was you felt like a real big shot. And so now that everybody has it, I don't know, but I usually try to do my crosses with Enigma, and what I'll do to make a cross is really pretty simple. I'll just get instead of using a single bag to make a single tub, I'll use two separate bags of different strains to make a single tub and just mix them together. And if you do that 3, 4 times, you're going to end up with one of them at least will end up actually crossing. Some of them, like you'll get one strain overwhelms the other strain, and then some of them you'll get kind of like a sparse population of both, and then every once in a while you'll get where they actually mix, and you can tell because of like the phenotypical presentation of it. So that's the phenotype is the the way it looks, and then the genotype is the way that the instructions are written. Um, and so we all have both. We are the exhibiting the phenotype of our genotype, if that makes sense. And so yeah, I like to use the enigmas to cross though. Might be just because they really take it easily, but I've had a lot of success with them. And so I've like mixed. This one was actually an old uh, hillbilly pumpkin penis envy cross that I made, and those ones were really strong. Yeah, those that one was funny. I had to leave a restaurant having a little panic attack one day because of those. But that was fun. Everything turned out for the best, so no stress.
Oh my gosh. I almost want to hear more of that story you got.
I felt so bad. I was with my friend, and we went, just to like have a couple of beers and a pizza, and watch some sports on the bar TV, and it was nice and quiet when we got in there, and we just smoked a nice heady joint, and I hadn't smoked in a couple of months. I took a little tolerance break, so I was just super stoned. And he takes SSRIs, and so he had taken literally like 2 grams of Enigma, and he was like gonna end up with a microdose feeling out of it, just because
Mhm.
SSRIs are incredible. Like they are like a shield from psychedelics. It's weird. Um, but I wanted to like kind of microdose with him, and so I ate just like a zero point 0.8 or zero point 0.7, maybe it was even zero point 0.6 of, I didn't weigh it, it was just real small, of like HBP Enigma, and I was like, okay, I'll just microdose a little bit with him. And while I was like hanging out and like eating some of the pizza, I was starting to just feel, I was like, whoa, this isn't stone, this is something else. And I was like, oh my god, it must be that Enigma. And it just kept building, and I was like, it's getting a little too busy in here. I was like, I'm just gonna give you some money and I'm gonna go wait by the car if that's all right. And he said, of course, and so I go outside and start standing by the car, and there's just so many people walking around. I texted him, I'm like, I'm just gonna walk home. And yeah, so that was pretty much the story, but it was a fun time.
Is it like, how is mushrooms helping like in your own mental health, like bringing it back to health and things like that? Because that's something that's calling a lot of people to it, and um, yeah, and kind of the start of your journey too. So I'm just curious, what you could share on for anybody out there who's, maybe has like any kind of social anxiety or things like that, because sometimes, it's hard to even realize it for yourself or to, change the situation or take that kind of responsibility. So yeah,
It's
just
so hard. I mean, I feel like there was, you touched on a lot of things there that I have a lot of strong feelings about. So like that's very tricky. The I started with mushrooms because I had heard about the positive stuff regarding anxiety and depression, and I was going through a lot of depression, and I've always had anxiety. So I was thinking, well, it might be good, and I've really benefited a lot from microdosing in regards to those two issues. Um, but I didn't know anybody at the time, and so that's what started me looking around to try to find genetics. And then once I found genetics, it also happened to be my friend Toad, and we ended up, just kind of marching forward because we both wanted somebody to, kind of link up and share the hobby with. And God, it must have been 7 years ago now or something. It seems like a long time. Um, but it's I did that, and it was just really really nice. And I noticed that I take, like a point four in the morning and then like a point four in the evening. uh and if I've been doing that for a couple of weeks, I might end up having like some where I'll take two in the morning or two in the afternoon. um but then I'll do that for, I'd say, probably like, a month at the most. And then I normally kind of just feel right. And so I just like won't take anything just because I kind of don't feel like it. I just feel good. And that'll I'll feel that way, like a nice equilibrium of just feeling regular and good for probably about 2 weeks, something like that, a week and a half. And then something will start to get to me a little bit, and I'll start rejoining the microdose train. And so I think that it probably builds up some sort of level of neurotransmitter in my brain that I maybe have a deficit of normally. And it, gets up above the threshold that it needs, but then, slowly starts getting beneath that. And then I can notice once it gets beneath that and try to
yeah.
re-up it so that I don't get trapped by anxiety.
Have you noticed any patterns, or do you keep a log or a journal?
Uh, I don't keep a log or a journal. I've started trying to journal recently because I think it's a wonderful, for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah,
Um,
especially that, going through anything and, to also observe your own kind of patterns that we were talking before this show about, just like the moon cycles and how we get into that kind of hormonal flow, and that it's not just women who go through that, it's men too. And that, working with the moon cycles in that way, you can also track progress and be able to, allow in or like ask for the things that you want and be able to do that introspection work and hold yourself accountable to different goals. So, it's
yeah.
like just another tool, the journaling, the tracking.
Oh, it's huge, and yeah, like you alluded to there, it's just so valuable when you're dealing with personal issues, um, like stuff that you're really, having like trouble with, like is my partner good for me, things like that. Like, because maybe you can get stuck into, that I've been at this job or I've had this partner or whatever it is for X amount of years, and now it's just become part of your identity, and you don't even really consider it an option that you could change that. And it's interesting how, and I'm not saying that everyone's gonna, take mushrooms and then all of a sudden want to break up or start a new marriage or whatever. But what it does is that for whatever issue that you're thinking about, it really gives you an opportunity to see it from a new perspective, but with your own eyes. And there's nothing that's as impactful as that. Nothing can convince you like yourself. Like if you make the decision, if you have the epiphany, it it means the world, you know, all the therapy in the world doesn't count up to you being like, oh, I get it now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, it's true. Terrence McKenna said that the only thing you can trust is your own direct experience. And, why wouldn't we want to open ourselves up to understanding more of what that actually looks like and more of our own truth? And, it's like one of the things, when you're going through like anxiety or in relationship issues or anything like that, a lot of the time it's that communication issue. And if you're having trouble communicating or anything, even more reason to get into a journal, even more reason to learn how to communicate yourself and know what your own personal truth is, so you can get into that personal freedom and actually have real, genuine connections. Connections like the mycelium, like the mushrooms, they really do want to help us with that. I really believe that. And I had a girl on recently, Laura, and she also works with honeybees and does mushroom infusions with that.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
so yeah, and part of that too is like the honeybees are so great at communicating. So when you're mixing it together, it's like you got like a double dose of communication.
Oh, that's so cool. I feel like there's something like oxytocin related with bees too. I'm forgetting it at the moment, but it's ringing a bell. And yeah, I think that, you know, that whole community thing is a big deal. And, you know, if you can, bees got me on a different idea, but yeah, if you can work in the, you know, community, it just makes things so nice. Like I've always been really pro community and like small town, in the sense that you should be nice to your neighbors. You should know who your neighbors are. You know, like they should know who you are. It just makes you feel better about your world and everybody around you if you know a little something and you share a little bit of yourself with them.
Yeah, that's how all this even got started. The mushrooms just told me one day when all lockdowns were happening, I was getting censored hard, like hard for everything. And I was like, yeah, I sat with the mushrooms and they were like, okay, well, you have to get on a decentralized platform, something that's safe, and you bring people to a safe place. All I have to do is find it and tell people about it, and then they'll come. And so we started it. And then I realized, wait, I brought all these people together that I love, that, I think have this really unique gift, but they're not talking to each other. And then, of course, no one's talking to each other. They all got social anxiety and, doing illegal
Exactly.
shit. And,
Yeah.
like, nobody wants to talk about it. But so then I started, I sat with the mushrooms again, and they said, okay, well, you have to just interview people. If you talk one-on-one and share your conversations with them, then they'll start talking to each other, and it just opens it up. So then all the entrepreneurs that were ready to like actually talk, because some people still aren't, and some people have talked before but won't talk now. And things have changed and evolved depending on where they're at, where they're living. But for the most part, it's been really good, because now the network is this place where everybody's literally growing together, and not just literally growing like medicine and
Yeah, mentally.
bringing Eden back, but they're also like growing through whatever it is that they've been going through, whatever that human suffering means to them, and it's been so beautiful.
I really like how not to overly pump it or anything, but I really do like how in the group, I forget what it is, if it's a Discord or whatever, but I really like how the group is like supportive of whatever you have an issue. If you like mention like, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I'm thinking about this, there's always somebody who's like, I kind of do that too, you know, do you want to, like, let's have a quick chat about this, you know? And it's nice to not feel alone, and to have that quick place where you can reach out, gain acceptance, and be able to ask for some insight that you will also value, because you value the people giving it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it too. And for anybody out there that's watching, thank you for being part of the network.
Amen. Exactly. It's amazing
uh,
how we're all connected like that. You know, it's
yeah.
phenomenal to think about. Like, nature's so complicated, and it all works. It's just miraculous.
Yes, I love that word too. I'm curious. I got a few other things here that you've been working on and sent me. So I wanted to take the next 10 minutes or so and just talk about what you've got here, and then we can get into how people can contact you and support you or ask questions and things like that.
Sure,
Um,
absolutely. Thank
so
you.
we do have your winning Jolly Penis Envy. So this is like
Yes.
highest psilocin or psilocybin.
Psilocybin.
And how much is like in each capsule?
0.35 to point 0.4.
Okay, and people like can buy these do you do the process, like teach them how to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to teach anybody and share my knowledge. And if you, maybe need a shortcut and or want, to get some microdoses in the meantime, I'm sure that if you contact me, we can figure some things out. Um, yeah, it's all something that can be done, and especially if you're here in Denver, then it's much easier. But I
Yeah.
can teach anyone anywhere how to grow mushrooms, and I can also send the the genetics anywhere. It's just in certain places you're not allowed to mix them and then grow them, and so I just tell everybody to follow the rules in your local areas, but you still are allowed to buy mycelium and the kits and everything just for research if you'd like to see, the mycelium grow and just kind of look at how things go, and or maybe try to put, a different type of mushroom in there. You can also grow a lot of gourmets like this.
Yeah,
So,
it's
just so that everybody
really,
knows, please don't break your rules.
yeah, it's been great too. Like, because basement culture sent some stuff over as well, and we knew that psychedelics were coming because that's kind of what we're about here. But then she also sent lion's mane, and it's like the same process. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. That almost had me more excited because not everybody sends me that kind of stuff. That's
The
my
lion's
mushroom.
mane, yeah.
I
No,
was
those are
like,
good too. I
they're
don't know if you've
great.
actually had a bit of it, but I was really
Oh, I
surprised.
forage for it back home, and it usually comes out around my birthday. So I always feel like that's my present from
Oh,
Mama
that's so
Nature.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I also got the AA plus. So
Oh
tell us
yes,
a bit about this.
those are fun. Those are my personal favorites.
I love the
Those
blue cap.
those are just nice, fun, giggly ones that I tend to enjoy with friends watching some TV or going out, to the bar. Or, just that's a fun with friends one.
And how much is in each one of the capsules?
Oh, it's the same for those. It's still
Okay.
0.35 to point 0.4. Yeah, I love those things though.
Yeah, I
Those
like
are
the blue. I put seeds into red capsules for cannabis and
Mhm.
give them out. So I'm like red pilling people.
Oh, that's hilarious. I like that.
But I never saw blue before. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I've got some blue and some
And we
white.
also got these, and so it's like you don't see them too often, right? The
Right. Oh yeah.
pansian. So tell us a little bit about like you growing them. What called you? Like what can you tell us about this strain?
Well, so those are the pancyans, or are those the TBBVII?
I think they're the.
One of
Oh,
each, maybe.
I actually have. It says both.
One of each. Okay.
Oh yeah,
Um. So then, yeah. So the pans are the ones that won the psychedelic cup for the non-cube category,
yeah,
and then the I always forget the acronym. There's so many letters. It's like TBVDII or something. Um,
yeah.
that one is the one that got second place in the Cultivator Cup in the
Oh,
non Cubensis category. So
they're
I
so
just
like
sent you our winners.
they're so tiny and
They're so
cute.
good.
Kind of reminds me of when my a friend of mine was doing woofing over in New Zealand and said like the mushrooms were so tiny. So it's like I'm wondering if they're the same kind that they're getting over there.
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I do think that these are like Southern Hemisphere. Um, I forget exactly where they were from. It was mentioned to me. I should have paid more attention. Um, those were grown by Toad, and he's the one who's really our pans guru. And pans are a whole different animal. Like you don't grow those in the same way that I was describing for the cubes. We will get a tech up eventually on the website that you can follow, but the pans are, it's not entry level. Um, like you need to be a pretty seasoned mycologist before you want
That's
to.
right. We were so excited for them.
Yeah.
We get a lot of the same stuff, and I mean, it's always different, and and we get a lot of good stuff. But like, it's always interesting. Like when basement culture sent hers, it was freeze dried, so it's like, oh, that's unique, that's different. Like that's always what we're looking for. And this too was one we're like, yeah, this is unique, it's different. Another one I got, I can't remember the name, but they were like really good for skin issues, and they're pretty rare too and hard to grow. I think it started with an N. My God,
Oh.
but I'm sorry, I'm totally gapping, giving part of a story. But when I think of that name, I'll get it to you.
Yeah, it sounds
Um,
interesting. I'd like to know it when you get a chance.
yeah, they were great. They were like a little bit bigger than this, but also like small and really dark. And it was a type of magic mushroom. I think it started with an N. But yeah, I
Yeah,
can't remember.
nothing's coming the bell for me right now, but that
Yeah,
doesn't.
I know who to ask. So I know who to ask because I know who sent them. So I'll even post it in the network. So
Oh,
anybody
perfect.
who's over there, you'll get the name and you'll get the guy.
Nice, nice. That's a good plan.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
You said
it's fun.
another little gift that you've been working on,
Oh
and
yes,
we're
the
going to be working with
games.
this tonight for the
Ah,
new
nice.
moon ceremony. So
You should
tell us
enjoy.
a bit.
That's I didn't make that at all. But I've never had better. So I don't know how much you might have had a lot more than I have had in my life, but I hope that you enjoy it.
Yes,
It's
thank
a
you.
real hoot. um, yeah, I've just been very proud of that, and so I wanted to make sure that everybody I knew got a chance to taste it
Have
because
the experience.
exactly. If you only get to do it, once in your life, it's like you've got to at least try it.
Yeah, this is better than like paying a ticket to Florida or Jamaica or something.
Oh yeah, exactly. You're gonna remember this forever. That's
So,
it's one of the things about like guiding somebody on a trip. It's like it's like you've now bonded with them like permanently.
oh yeah.
It's
So
fun.
what called you to DMT in your own life?
I mean, it was just that it, came around, and I'd always been really interested in it, but I'd never had the opportunity. And once it came around and I had the opportunity, I was a little nervous, for a while. But then I was like, all right, well, let's give this a shot. And I always like to, especially like when something comes with like a lot of stories behind it, like with acid, people would tell you that flying tennis rackets or whatever, silliness. And so I like to try stuff like that at home once before I go out and about and do it. And so I took the deems and, got like just a cutting board in front of me so that when the pipe got hot, I could just put it down and slide it to the side and not have to worry about it. And I put up a little camera to videotape me just to like watch me go through it and like watch it later. And
A lot of
yeah,
people like that, to look on it. Tanazi and Danielle have been doing that too on their big journeys, 10 grams plus, and they've been getting it recorded to look back and reflect. So,
yeah, that's me. I'm not that brave. God bless
oh
them.
yeah.
Yeah, mine's much smaller. But yeah, I went, and it was just really fun. But that was actually what got me like back dipping in to tripping again. But I wanted the mushrooms I like because they're natural. Not that DMT isn't. But it's a lot harder to obtain and I always like growing stuff. Growing things is fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you got the experience and grateful that you're sharing it and everything else here. Everybody, I want you to go check out jollymycology.com. And also, if there's anything else that you want to share before we go, yeah, please do. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, just anybody, if you want to get in the link, feel free. We've got some genetics that we're selling on the site. We've got some shirts through a Shopify link that we're going to be selling just for a little bit longer because I think we're going to close that down. But other than that, contact us about figuring out how to make your own this, that, or the other thing. We're going to start having some tutorial videos that we're going to put up on YouTube as long as they let us, or we'll use Rumble. And just kind of give away especially because the tech is so simple, the one that I use, it's just 1+1=2. And so I just hope that it benefits other people and that they can kind of, get the same benefits that I've received from it for themselves.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
We'll
you.
chat soon.
Absolutely. I appreciate your opportunity for giving me a call or
Bye,
on
everyone.
and everything. You're great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Bye.